This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast.
The Hidden Killers Podcast.
With Tony Bruschi.
We are taking a listen to specific testimony from the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell. We're now up to FBI Special Agent Rick Wright testifying in the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. Let's go to the courtroom.
All right, we're back on the record. State can call its next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state will call Ricky Wright.
Swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes, sir.
All right, before we get started with the examination, let me just inquire as to the witness who's now been sworn. There is an exclusionary rule in place, so have you observed any of the trial testimony in this case by either reading any of it or listening to any of it in any way since this trial started?
No, I have not.
Okay, thanks for your response. When being questioned, please talk directly into your microphone. Please use verbal responses to each question so we get a clear record, and try to avoid speaking at the same time as anyone questioning you. And with that in mind, Ms. Blake, you can inquire on direct.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Rick Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.
And what is your current title or position?
I am a contract special investigator for the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
So if I call you Investigator Wright today, would that be inaccurate?
Yes.
Where were you previously, or what was your previous title or position?
So before I came on as a contract special investigator, I was a special agent with the FBI for 24 years.
In order to be a special agent, did you have any training?
Yes.
What was some of your training?
I attended new agents training at the FBI Academy in Virginia in 1997 for 4 months, and then I was assigned to the Denver division of the FBI for 21 years, and I received additional specialized training in the various types of cases that I addressed while I was there.
And what was some of that specialized training?
I investigated drugs and organized crime, fraud, public corruption, and for the last 11 years I was in Denver. I did I did violent crime, specifically violent crimes against children, and I received throughout that 21 years various specialized training and attended conferences to receive additional training on how to address those kinds of cases.
And with the last 11 years, was your focus then mainly on crimes involving children?
Yes, I was the Violent Crimes Against Children coordinator for the FBI in Denver for those last 11 years, from 2007 until 2018. And I investigated crimes involving missing, abducted, and trafficked children. As the Violent Crimes Against Children coordinator, I helped coordinate the FBI's response for the territory of the Denver division involving cases of that nature, and that territory was all of Colorado and Wyoming.
And after working in Colorado, did you continue work with the FBI?
Yes. In late 2018, I transferred from the Denver division to the Salt Lake division and was assigned to the Pocatello Resident Agency in Pocatello, Idaho.
And with regard to that resident agency, what areas did you cover?
So that resident agency is, it's just 5 agents at that time. 3 of them handled criminal matters, and the 3 criminal investigators, of which I was one, handled all general criminal cases in eastern Idaho. I think it was about 17 counties.
At some point while working at that Pocatello, I guess, would it be a field office? Or?
So we called it a resident agency, or an RA, For short, our division headquarters was Salt Lake, which covers, Salt Lake Division covers all of Utah, Idaho, and Montana.
While you were working there, did you become involved in a search for J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately when you became involved in that investigation?
November 27th of 2019.
Was there a reason that you and or the FBI became involved in this particular investigation?
So I was contacted by Lieutenant Ron Ball from the Rexburg Police Department regarding a missing child in their jurisdiction, and due to his young age, the FBI under the Federal Kidnapping Act can respond to kidnappings because of the potential interstate nature of a kidnapping. Because a kidnapping often doesn't manifest itself as a kidnapping in the beginning, particularly when involving a young child. The FBI is supposed to get involved in a missing child case when it involves a child of tender years that's missing under suspicious circumstances. Generally, the FBI defines tender years as under 12. So when we have a child under 12 missing under suspicious circumstances, the FBI should try to assist if they are able. Sometimes that's active investigation. Sometimes that's just providing additional resources to the agency requesting assistance.
Can I have him either move a little bit closer to I'm having trouble catching what he's saying.
Okay, that microphone, if you could just speak directly into it, we'll pick up better. Thank you.
And you talk about a child of tender years under 12. Initially, when you became involved in the investigation, was it only reported that J.J. Vallow was missing?
Yes, the Rexburg Police Department informed me that they were doing a welfare check regarding Joshua Vallow or J.J. Vallow and had been unable to locate him, and that was the initial information they have and the initial child of concern.
And in this particular case, you became involved actively in the investigation, is that correct?
Yes, the FBI initiated an investigation. I was the case agent or the case manager. There was another agent in the Pocatello resident agency named Travis Homer, who was also a case agent on the investigation.
At some point during the investigation, did you also learn that Tylee Ryan was missing?
Yes, fairly early on, we determined that J.J. Vallow's sibling, Tylee Ryan, could not be located. However, initially that was believed that she was still in Arizona, where the family had previously resided, but no one had been able to locate her.
And you talk about being contacted by Ron Ball with the Rexburg Police Department. Do you know if there were other agencies involved in the investigation?
The investigation of J.J. Vallow was primarily the Rexburg Police Department. However, there are other agencies, including the Fremont County Sheriff's Office and 2 police departments in Arizona that were investigating that had investigations that had a connection to the Rexburg Police Department's investigation.
And do you know what incidents those other agencies were looking into?
Yes.
And what were those?
The Fremont County Sheriff's Office was probing the death of Tammy Daybell that was in their jurisdiction. And the Chandler Police Department was looking into the death of the husband of Lori Vallow, who was residing in Arizona in the Chandler area, or was there, and that's where he died. And then the Gilbert Police Department was looking into a shooting that had happened in their jurisdiction against Brandon Boudreau. Someone had fired a weapon at him.
So would it be fair to say that this turned into a joint investigation?
Yes.
Do you recall at some point in your investigation meeting with an individual named Ian Pulowski?
Yes.
Did you determine who Ian Pulowski is?
He was the husband of Melanie Pulowski, and she had previously been Melanie Boudreau.
Did you, in fact, conduct an interview of Ian Pulowski?
I did. I spoke with him at the Rexburg Police Department. Other investigators were also present with the Rexburg Police Department, but I spoke with him on December 5th, 2019.
After speaking with him, did your concern for the children's safety increase?
Yes, it did.
Did you end up requesting Ian do anything or Mr. Pulowski do anything to assist in the investigation?
The Rexburg Police Department and I requested that he continue to provide additional information if possible to help us in locating the children. And he was also asked if he would consensually record conversations that he was a party to.
Did he in fact agree to do that?
He did.
Did he in fact record some conversations or discussions?
Yes, he did. Between that initial interview and about December 23rd of 2019, he recorded some conversations that he had with Melanie Pulowski as well as Lori Vallow, Alex Cox, and Chad Daybell.
Did he provide copies of those recordings to the investigators?
Yes, the recording device belonged to the Rexburg Police Department. That recording device was retrieved and they extracted those recordings and maintained those in custody.
And you had previously stated you were the case agent for the FBI investigation. Can you discuss a little bit about what the role of a case agent is?
It's to conduct the investigation, but also at times to marshal additional resources to assist with that investigation. Sometimes the investigation can be conducted by one agent. Sometimes it requires additional resources within the office, and sometimes, of course, the FBI is a national organization and has quite a bit of resources, and so sometimes that involves requesting specialized resources from elsewhere in the FBI.
In this case, did you request some additional assistance?
Yes, I did.
And specifically, did you request some assistance in looking at location data associated with Alex Cox?
Yes, the FBI has some specially trained agents that investigate, that can analyze records from cellular records and other geolocation records, and that's called the Cellular Analysis Survey Team. It was a fairly small team at that time, maybe 25 or 30 agents around the country that had that specialized training, and we requested assistance from them.
Did they in fact provide that assistance?
Yes, they did.
Do you know if there was a specific agent that was involved in assisting in this case?
Yes, there was.
And who was that?
His name was Nick Balance. He was an agent assigned to the Phoenix, Arizona division of the FBI.
And as he would go through the data recovery or the location recovery, was he sharing that information with you?
Yes, he was.
Did he also provide information to you and assist you further with your investigation into the location, specifically regarding Alex Cox's device?
Yes, he did. When the records would come in for various phones that we had requested from the carriers, or for sometimes Google or other location information, that would go to him for analysis, and he was feeding that information to us to give us potential avenues of investigation. At some point, he provided some additional information regarding that to me that I also looked at myself. And when you looked at that information, do you recall what dates you looked at, or if there were specific dates you focused on, a time period? I did. So he had given us multiple dates, particularly around the month of September, which became of interest to us as we were specifically trying to narrow down when the children had last been seen and what had happened to them. And he had given us much of that data as it was coming in, but at some point I requested that he provide everything from September 1st of 2019 for the whole month of September to me. So he was able to give me that until almost basically the end of September 30th that evening. And he provided that entire record to me so that I could go through it. At a later date, he also provided the entire month of October to me as well.
Investigator Wright, in preparation for your testimony today, did you assist in preparing a summary exhibit?
Yes, I did.
And is that a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Do you believe if you were shown what's purported to be the slides contained in that PowerPoint presentation that you would recognize those?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask that, and defense has a copy of this. It's been marked as State's Exhibit 299. I'd ask that the witness be shown this, and I will grab the courtesy copy for the court. However, this is a actual PowerPoint contained on a jump drive, so these are just printed out slides.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Blake.
And Investigator Wright, if I can just have you flip through those. And do those appear to be an accurate representation of the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, they do.
And would those assist, or would the PowerPoint assist today in your testimony?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admission of State's Exhibit 299.
Any objection?
May I have blood hearing aid?
Yes.
So, I just got so used to calling you Special Agent Wright. You're now a contract special investigator. What should I call you, Mr. Wright, or?
Yeah, Mr. Wright is fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So, Mr. Wright, you made this PowerPoint, and it looks like I got it early in the morning. When did you finish up this PowerPoint?
I worked with prosecutors to put that together last night.
Last night you were working with them to put this together?
Yes.
Okay. And did they give you some idea about how the case has been going so far?
No.
Okay. They didn't tell you the things that they needed to get out of this PowerPoint because of maybe some holes in their case that they had before?
They helped. This was put together to help me put together the information that I had to testify to in my knowledge.
Okay. But you didn't speak with them about other agents that may have testified?
No.
Because you specifically brought up Mr. Balance, or sorry, Special Agent Balance, that his testimony didn't come up in your discussions last night?
No, the contents of his testimony did not come up.
Okay. And no other context of things that other people may have testified previously came up last night?
No.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm satisfied. I'm not going to object to the PowerPoint.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. So, State's Exhibit 299, which is a PowerPoint presentation, jump drive, will be admitted.
Your Honor, I would request permission to publish.
You can publish.
I will submit the jump drive to the court after the publication, if that works for the court. And on this first slide here, we're seeing a phone number and a Gmail account. Are those the ones that were associated with the location data that you looked at, the device that you were reviewing?
Yes.
Back up here. And you indicated that you started your review or focused on the month of September 1st, prior to looking at the October. Were you able to determine what date it appeared Alex's device first appeared in Idaho?
The first time it appeared here, in which it appeared he started residing here, was September 1st in the evening.
And were you able to determine at some point through the investigation where his phone appeared to be residing or mainly at during the 1st of September?
So it arrived here in the evening. It had moved from St. George, Utah that morning of the 1st. It arrived in Rexburg, Idaho the evening of the 1st. And the device began to seem like it spent its evenings or its nights at 565 Pioneer Road, number 175 in Rexburg.
At some point, did the device appear to start spending the night somewhere else?
Yes. Beginning September 5th, it began to go to another unit within the complex, and that was Unit 107.
But between September 1st and up until September 5th, it appeared to stay the night at the 175.
Yes, it appeared to only be associated with 175.
During your investigation, did you end up focusing in on certain dates in September?
Yes.
And the first date we see here is Sunday, September 8th of 2019. Was there a reason that that was a date that you focused in on?
During the course of the investigation, we had obtained some information that a photograph of Lori Vallow, of Tylee Ryan on that date at Yellowstone National Park. And we were trying to narrow down the place and date and time the children were last seen. And up until that point, we had not been able to find information of what had happened to Tylee Ryan after that photograph was taken.
So in looking at what we're seeing here, can you take us through what's on this slide?
So I had gone through these data points, really data point to data point. Sometimes there's one or more a minute. Sometimes there's one every few minutes. Sometimes it can be hours between data points in some cases. And my intention here was to go through these data points as it traveled up to Yellowstone, because the device went to Yellowstone that day as well, and try to determine what possible investigative steps could be taken along that route, or particularly after that photograph was taken, that might lead us to more information about where Tylee had gone.
And with these slides, could there be some data points that are not included?
Yes.
And I guess for the benefit of the jury, when we talk about data points, do you know where that information is retrieved, or are there different types of data points?
Yes, there are. So Nick Balance had warrants had been served on the carrier for the phone, the cellular carrier, as well as Google for the Google account, which was associated with that same phone. Google provided different data than the cellular carrier, but Nick Balance had taken the data and put it into a Google Earth file for analysis. These different data points that both entities can provide. They consist of three types of data points. GPS, which was generally the most precise, sometimes down to a few meters in radius. Wi-Fi data points, which were generally less precise, usually 15 meters to sometimes a few hundred, even more than 100 meters in precision in the radius. And then cellular tower data, or the cell tower that had been used, and those can be hundreds of meters to even a few thousand meters or more, depending on the density of the towers. So this information was all compiled together, and so each data point really had to be looked at individually by looking at the underlying data to see how much confidence could be placed in a particular data point.
And if it had a smaller radius, would that generally mean that it was more precise?
Yes.
And so were those oftentimes focused in on more?
Yes. The ones with those, the lower radius, the GPS and Wi-Fi were generally more important.
And if we look at this next slide, and I think there should be a laser pointer up there as well if that ends up being useful. But can you talk about what we're seeing on this slide?
So from that previous slide, the device actually had left the Rexburg area. It was last at a Maverick at 11:52 in Rexburg. That was the last time it stopped in Rexburg, and it had been there prior to that 11:52. But 11:52 is about when it appears to leave, and then we begin to see this data trail, these breadcrumbs that as it moves to the west entrance of Yellowstone National Park. It's there about 13:29. And then it continues driving continuously until it gets around the Old Faithful Lodge area where Old Faithful Geyser is. Some of these data points are less precise, and that's roughly about 1450. We're not exactly sure at Old Faithful where it's at. But then we do get some more specific data points, 1504 around the Old Faithful Lodge cafeteria. And then after that, around the Old Faithful Geyser Rim, and then later in the parking lot at Old Faithful until about 1627. Then the device ends up traveling from that point further into the park down near Lewis Lake, and then it reverses track out the way it came to the west entrance, which it arrives at 1840, and makes one more stop in West Yellowstone, the town itself, in a commercial area near this Buckaroo Bill's Barbecue Grill. It seems to be right around that point.
And then based on that information, what would we be seeing in this slide?
So these are some of those data points I was talking about from specifically at Old Faithful Geyser. So up in this corner here, the upper left corner is actually the Old Faithful Geyser. This building here is the Old Faithful Lodge cafeteria. And this is the boardwalk around the geyser where people watch the geyser as it goes off. Around between 1504 and 1522, we saw these data points around, and they had a low enough margin, a low enough radius that helped me have confidence that it was around the cafeteria. And then starting about 1542, we see this large cluster of data points, and most of these are GPS data points, and it clusters around this particular spot. After 1604, the next data point picks up around 1615 in the parking lot, and by 1627, it appears to be pulling out of the parking lot and traveling eastbound.
And through the investigation, did you focus in on the boardwalk area?
So there were some photographs on a iCloud account associated or attributed to Lori Vallow, and that was the Lori for Style iCloud account. Within that account, some photographs had been retrieved during the course of the investigation, and the photographs of both J.J. Tiley and Alex Cox appears to be taken on the boardwalk at Yellowstone at Old Faithful Geyser. The timestamp on this particular photo from that is at 1549 on the 8th, which according to the device for Alex Cox that I was looking at, that device had that cluster of data points between 1542 and 1604 at the at Old Faithful Geyser Rim.
And previously you talked about a last known photo of Tiley. Is this one of the photos you're talking about?
Yes.
And looking at the next slide, and I'll just make a note, we have times on here, these are in military time, is that correct?
Yes.
So with the higher numbers, that starts putting us afternoon?
Yes.
So
after
from 1 o'clock
12.
would be 13
Yes.
and so on.
Correct.
And what are we seeing in this particular slide?
So this is an overhead map view of Yellowstone National Park. Up in this upper left corner is the Old Faithful Geyser area, the lodge area. And this is US 287. It may have, the highway may actually have other names in different sections, but it continues on. It's a paved highway that ends up going past Yellowstone Lake, which is here, and this is Lewis Lake here. The device begins to travel east, and it continues until it turns south. It continues on this road until 1712 on the 8th, and then it appears to turn back and reverse course and go back out. Near this turnaround spot, fortunately, there's quite a bit of the data points are very precise and frequent. Even in this case, you can see multiple at 1712. That it appears from my review that the vehicle couldn't have stopped for any duration, really much of any duration there, and had immediately probably just done a U-turn in the middle of the highway or something similar and had reversed course and was heading back. And so the goal of my review here was to try to identify potential areas for follow-up investigation. And based on this, it did not appear that the vehicle stopped for any duration within the park other than at the lodge. And the only other time it stopped for any duration was at West Yellowstone near that commercial business area after it left the park. And although there are gaps in the data, like here's an example of gaps, the drive time between the gaps was consistent with the break in the gaps. So the vehicle appeared to be traveling at least as fast as a normally driving vehicle should be moving through the park. Round trip from here to this point and then back out to the west entrance is about a 2-hour, 50-minute drive. And according to the data points, it traveled that in 2 hours and 13 minutes. So under what would probably be expected. But of course, there's a lot of variables in traveling through the park with traffic and other things. But it didn't seem like there was any pause of any duration, any deviation from the main road, and particularly no stop in an unpopulated or non-busy area that I could observe.
And for the benefit of the jurors, 1712 would be about 5:12 p.m.
5:12 p.m.
And then did you continue to look at some additional data points for September 8th?
Yes. So after it leaves the west entrance to the park, it does make a stop in West Yellowstone itself. This is a commercial area. The closest business appeared to be this Buckaroo Bill's Barbecue Grill. I can't say if that's where it went, but it was there near that for about 17 minutes. And then the device starts moving again at driving speed. And again, along the route back, it didn't appear that there was enough data to support any kind of deviation or pause in the travel of any significant duration. The vehicle arrives back at 565 Pioneer Road, number 175, the residence for Lori Vallow at 20:37 or 8:37 p.m.
And based on what you reviewed with this data, did you come to a conclusion with regard to Tylee Ryan?
Yes. So the initial information about us conducting additional investigation at Yellowstone, I couldn't identify much of any points to investigate there other than potentially along the route traveled, and that based on the photograph and her last known proof of life, that she had I had confidence that she had returned to this address at 8:37 p.m. And now that was our new point in our timeline that we needed to scrutinize our last known location for her.
And then we see the information continuing on this slide to Monday, September 9th of 2019. And there's some data points listed there. Can you indicate what the significance of those is?
So after it returns to 175 from Yellowstone, the device travels to a Maverick, which is a little less than a mile north of the residence, and it's there for about 10 minutes between 2143 and 2153. And then, although there are data points sometimes between these gaps, like between 2153 and 2244, there could be some data points, but sometimes there's a break. But the next location that it appears that the device is, with confidence, is at 2244 to 2315 back at Lori Vallow's in Unit 175. And then at 2344, the device is at 107, or is mostly closely associated with 107. Throughout the night, there's a lot of data points, actually, but many of them are cell tower data points. Hundreds or thousands of meters is the confidence radius. And so I focused on the data points that gave us more confidence regarding where the device was, and there were a few. At 242, 0242, and again at 0242, and then one more time at 0337, the device has three GPS data points with a 4-meter radius associated with Unit 175, or most closely associated with 175. Again, later that same morning, there are some more data points now more closely associated with 107. One at 437, one at 439, one at 441, another at 514, another one at 647, and then one at 849. These 6 data points are a combination of Wi-Fi and GPS, but their radius is between 8 and 37 meters.
And just to be clear, those data points on Monday, September 9th are in the early morning hours?
Yes. So, yes, those are early morning at 2:42 a.m. is that first one, and then it continues on, and the last one's 8:49 a.m.
And also, to be clear, the device you're looking at is a device associated with Alex Cox?
Yes.
And also, do you know, and I think we've already said it, but do you know who primarily resided in apartment 175?
Lori Vallow and the 2 children at that time.
And do you know who primarily resided in number 107?
Alex Cox at that time.
Was there anything else that caught your attention with regard to those early morning times that the device was at number 175?
I continued this review throughout the entire month of September and was able to observe the activities, the general pattern of activity at night for that device. And a common pattern would be to be in Unit 175, Lori's apartment, in the evening between about 8 and maybe 11:30 or even close to midnight. And then it seemed to depart. It would go over to 107 and stay there throughout the night and would not leave again until the morning or even sometimes noon the following day. So during the periods I reviewed in September, between midnight and 6 a.m., that device was in 107 and this is for the period when it first started appearing at 107, which was the night of September 5th, until really all the way up until the end of September, except for there was an exception on September 30th. It was somewhere else on September 30th. So the general pattern was at night, it was in 107 between midnight and 6 a.m. And this was the only time that I observed it go to 175 between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m., those 3 data points.
And on this next slide, can you tell us what we're seeing?
So this is really just a snapshot from the Google Earth file provided me from Nick Balance again, with the data points as plotted. And these were the data points that I referenced. So this is an overhead of the Rock Creek Townhomes complex. Unit 175, this photo is dated, obviously I think the photo is from 2015. So as of 2019, in September, 175, or Lori Vallow's apartment, was up in this upper left corner. 107 was here in this group of apartments near this end. The distance between these 2 apartments is about 80 meters. And so the 3 data points that I talked about that appear in the early morning hours at 175, at 2:42, and again at 2:42, and 3:37, all with 4 meter, they're all GPS data points with 4 meter radius. They're really stacked on top of each other right there. They're right there. So then later that morning, we get some additional data points at 4:37, 4:39, 4:41, 5:14, 6:47, and 8:49. 4:37.
Hold on. Sorry. Go back and repeat them, please.
4:37, 4:39, 4:41, 5:14, 6:47, and 8:49. So those data points are grouped here, and the radius varies on these data points, but the range of them is 8 to 37 meter radius data points. Now again, there were other data points received between these throughout the night, but because the radius was of such a high number, I couldn't say with confidence that they were at what unit they were at. I couldn't say that they're in the general area of the complex for the most part, so it didn't appear that it had left that area from what I observed.
And because of the meter radius on these being less than the distance between the 2 apartments, is that why you'd focused in on these particular data points?
Yes.
Did you then look at where the device was on Monday, September 9th of 2019?
Yes.
And what did you determine, or what did you learn?
The device departs Unit 107 at 565 Pioneer Road at approximately 9 a.m. And then we receive data points as it travels north in the Rexburg area to an address at 202 North, 1900 East in Rexburg, which is located 7 or 8 miles north of the 565 Pioneer Road address. It arrives there about approximately 9:15. I think we get a data point just maybe 100 yards or so south of the address. So it's just pulling in right about that time. That address was the residence at that time of Chad Daybell.
And again, the times that we're seeing would be in the morning hours, so later that same morning?
Yes, this is the same morning as those other data points. These are at 9 and 9:15 in the morning.
Were you able to determine approximately how long the phone remained the device remained in the area of the Daybell residence?
So between the time of 9:15 and approximately 9:45, there are numerous data points for the device in the area of the Daybell residence. Many of them are they're a high radius, meaning a lower confidence in those data points. So I focused on the ones with a low meter radius. And there were really four, one at 9:21, another one at 9:22, one at 10:39, and one at 10:57. There are other, like I said, other data points coming in between these, and don't seem to show that it necessarily is not at that address, but I can't say it is in the intermittent times between these or after these. But by 11:45, the device is traveling southbound and returns to the Rexburg area, where at 11:52 it stops at a Del Taco for about 10 minutes. So the first data point at 9:21 is actually a data point that is behind the Daybell residence. It's a GPS data point with a 6-meter radius. At 9:22, there's another data point, and this is actually on the northwest corner of the property. It's also a GPS data point with a 3-meter radius.
And if we go to the next slide, do we start to see those data points?
Yes, so these are those 4 data points that I mentioned. So the first one at 9:21, well, first, this is an overhead of the Daybell residence from the same mapping software I was using. And this here would be the Daybell residence. This is Salem Road, or also 1900 East. And this is 200 North here. And so this is the address at 202 North, 1900 East. So this is the main residence to the property. There's a barn-like structure here, a garage, an unattached garage, and some other small outbuildings, a shed. And so the first data point appears there at 9:21. And again, that's a GPS data hit, a GPS coordinate with a 6-meter radius being the margin of error. At 9:22, approximately 1 minute later, there's a data point here by this. There's a gate into the property, and there is it appears through this gate you could drive onto the property. In fact, so there's a data point there at 9:22. We don't receive any quality data points again until 9:39, when we get a GPS data point with a 43-meter radius, and that's right in here. And then at 10:57, we get another one with a 5-meter radius here. And then by 11:45, we see we actually do get a data point just slightly north of the residence on the road, like 11:42. It would be off the map, but just like 11:42, as if he drove like a block north and then he goes south. And so by 11:45, he's traveling south from the residence back into Rexburg and then to the Del Taco.
And in looking at this, it appears that most of the data points are in the same general location, but we have one that, me looking at the screen, is in the upper left corner. Did you learn any significance with relation to that data point?
I'm sorry, which data point?
I believe it's the one at 9:22, the one up in the northwest corner.
Only that there was a gate there that would allow a vehicle to get onto the back property.
At some point in your investigation, did the cluster of data points that are closer together gain more significance?
Yes, it did.
And what did you learn?
So we had obtained numerous devices in this investigation, several devices that were analyzed by the regional computer forensics laboratory. Had done most of them down in Salt Lake City. Some of these devices had been obtained in warrants from some of the addresses that had been executed and had been obtained in various ways. There was a particular device that had been obtained from a search warrant executed at the Daybell residence on January 3rd of 2020. There were several devices found, so this particular device, its relevance in the investigation was unknown. But these devices, after analysis by the forensics laboratory, they're put into a system for reviewing them. And it was that one particular device was being reviewed by Ben Dean, an analyst with the FBI in Boise. And he contacted me on June 1st of 2020 and notified me that he believed the device, based on information he was observing, belonged to Tammy Daybell at one point. And he had found a text within that dated Monday, September 9th, 2019 at 11:53 a.m. And it was a text from Chad that Tammy had received. And the text indicated that Chad had been burning limb debris on a fire on the fire pit on the property, and that he had also killed a raccoon and had dug a hole and buried it.
And after learning of that additional text, there's a couple references in there, and one specifically to the fire pit.
Yes.
Did that bring on new meaning to this location, to these data points?
Yes. Up until then, we had certainly observed these data points, but really didn't understand what, if any, significance to place to them at that point. Why a device for Alex Cox would be on the property back in that area, or at this point in the investigation. However, coupled with that text indicating that Chad, in his own words, was saying he was on the property burning something and burying something the morning of the 9th. At the same time, Alex's device was also present on the property. That this certainly set off a flag for us.
And do you know if those data points are in fact by some kind of a fire pit?
Yes, I don't have that marked on here, but I have been present on the property. I know that fire pit is roughly in this area.
And at some point, did this lead to obtaining an additional search warrant?
So when I was notified by Ben Dean regarding this text message, I contacted the Rexburg Police Department, spoke with Ron Ball and Detective Ray Hermosillo. We determined that based on this new information, a warrant should be sought for the property.
And was a warrant ultimately obtained?
Yes, the Rexburg Police Department sought a warrant and obtained that.
Were you present when that warrant was executed?
Yes.
Are you aware of what was found near those data points?
Human remains were found in this area, buried.
Do you know who those human remains were later determined to be?
Tylee Ryan.
And I think you had indicated that the device left the area headed towards Rexburg?
Yes.
And then the next stop after this was at a Del Taco?
Yes.
Did you focus on some other dates in September?
Yes. We had also been trying to narrow down the time period when JJ had last been seen. He had been in school, so that helped us determine that certainly after September 8th, he was back in school, so we knew that. And but beginning around September 22nd and into 23rd, his whereabouts were becoming more unknown to us. We couldn't find information to confirm where he was. And so on the evening of September 22nd, I scrutinized this particular period of time, and there was some traffic with the device. It is at Lori Vallow's apartment at 175 between 1626 and 1708. And I should say all of these are GPS and Wi-Fi data points that helped me determine summarize where it was, and the radius on them varied between 14 and 17 meters. And so that first data point it was at Lori's at the first range, and then it appeared at 107 between 1709 and 1711. And then between 1712 and 1845, it's back at Lori's. And then between 846 and 2003, it's back at Alex's at 107. And then between 2004 and 2009, it's at Lori's. And then at 2011, it is back at 107. Now this shows the ending time being 2356 at September 22nd. That is actually just the last data point on the day of September 22nd. The next data point appears at 0011, so at 11 minutes after midnight. So there's a 15-minute gap between those, and that was fairly common. Sometimes, again, they could be a minute or two apart, or sometimes longer in this case. So the next data point we get at 11 minutes after midnight, but it's still at 107. And it doesn't appear, we get no other information that it moves from 107 until 9:41 in the morning. So the span of time really, that based on the data I observed, appears to be in 107 from 2011 on the night of the 22nd until 9:41 on the morning of the 23rd.
And then did you continue to look at location data further into the day on the 23rd?
Yes. So beginning at 9:41, the device departs Unit 107. It travels from 107 and north toward in Rexburg north we get to 202 north, 1900 east in Rexburg, so the Daybell residence. It arrives there approximately at 9:55. We get 6 data points between 9:55 and 10:12 around the Daybell residence, on or around the Daybell residence, and these are a span of roughly 17 minutes. By 10:12, it appears to be departing the residence and traveling southbound back into Rexburg, and it goes to Lori Vallow's apartment and gets there at 10:22 and stays till 11:14. These data points vary in precision. Again, the first one at 9:55 is a Wi-Fi 50-meter radius that seems to show the device near the front of the property, near the garage. And then at 9:56, there's a GPS data point back by a pond that's on the property. And I call it a pond, but it's some kind of pit I think it sometimes has water and sometimes does not. And then at 10:02, there's also another GPS data point near that pond, and this is a 3-meter radius data point. And at 10:05, there's one now near the front door of the house, and this is Wi-Fi with a 68-meter radius, and then one at 10:07 near the front of the house, a 92-meter radius. And then the final one is at 10:12, and it's actually on the southwest corner of the property, really right in the middle of the intersection of Salem Road, which is 1900 East and 200 North. And that's a Wi-Fi 28-meter radius. And then after 10:12, and I don't have this on here, there's subsequent data points that as the device travels down to 565 Pioneer Road and gets there at 10:22.
And so to be clear, the device leaves from Alex Cox's residence up to Chad Daybell's residence?
Yes.
Is that correct? And then the device returns to Lori Vallow's apartment?
Yes.
And on this next slide, can you tell us what this is?
So this is a still image taken from that Google Earth of the Daybell property with those 6 data points on it and shows their location. So again, this is the residence. The first one at 955, which is the Wi-Fi 50-meter radius, is this one near the garage. Now there's a garage here on the property and a driveway. At 956, the device is here according to the data point, which it's GPS with a 4-meter radius. And then the next one is at 10:02, and that one that's there by the pond with a 3-meter radius. And then by 10:05, it's here, and that's a Wi-Fi 68-meter radius, so not as precise. And then at 10:07, it's right next to it, but that's a 92-meter radius, and also Wi-Fi. And then the final one is this one at 10:12, and it's right in the intersection. Wi-Fi 28-meter radius, and again after that the device, there are additional data points that show that it's traveling south back into Rexburg.
And did those data points by the pond at some point gain more significance in the investigation?
Yes.
And how so?
When the warrant was executed on June 9th, 2020 at the Daybell residence, law enforcement was able to find human remains again in this area, which was later determined to be Tylee Ryan, and they also found human remains really next to or underneath this tree, and those human remains were determined to be J.J. Vallow.
And again, the device leaves this area and returns to Lori Vallow's apartment.
Yes.
Were you able to determine through the month of September how often you located data points placing that device at or near the Daybell residence?
So in the month of September, I observed it on 4 occasions that the device was at or near the Daybell residence. The first time was on September 6th, and that was for an 11-minute period from 12:42 to 12:53. The device was there. Those particular data points there's not many in that short period of time, but the few data points are clustered in the front yard or near the front door of the house. There weren't any back on the back of the property or anything like that. And then again on September 9th, as previously discussed, that's where we first saw some back on the property. And then again on September 23rd, we had those data points, including the ones back by the tree. And then there's another visit by the device on September 25th. And this is a 17-minute visit to the property, and those data points are similar to the one on September 6th. They're really just clustered near the front of the property or front door. You can't really say if it's even in the house or not.
Did you also look at some data points associated with a window tinting shop?
I did. So in the course of this review, we were trying to identify movements of the device and potential follow-up investigation and places that it went. And among the places that it went, on three occasions, all the short visits were on Monday, September 23rd at 13:53 to 13:58. The device appears to be at a Dan's Window Tinting, 2551 West, 6800 South in Rexburg. It returns to that same location on Wednesday, September 25th, but just for really a minute or two at 1902 to 1903. 902 and 903, excuse me. And then it comes back later that same day, 11:57 to 11:59. And those are the only 3 times I observed that in September or October.
And you had previously indicated that you were aware of an investigation into an attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux.
Yes.
And on this slide, do you recognize that Jeep?
Yes, that's the Jeep that belonged to Tylee Ryan.
Are you aware of any description of a vehicle involved in the Brandon Boudreaux attempted shooting?
I'm aware that a Jeep with tinted windows was used.
And then we see another image there, and there's some print by those. Could you tell us what that image is of?
So, the Jeep was searched by the Rexburg Police Department on December 19th of 2019, and the FBI's evidence response team assisted with processing the vehicle. And so I was not present for this search, but at a later time I went through the photographs taken of the inside of the Jeep, and among the photographs were some photographs of some receipts. And when I looked more closely at these receipts, I obtained this information from them. One of the receipts is dated October 1st of 2019. And the time on it is 13:12, and it's from a restaurant in Mesa, Arizona called Los Favoritos, and it's a cash transaction for food and a beverage in the amount of $8.86.
And are you aware of when the attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux took place?
On the morning of October 2nd.
And do you know where that took place?
In Gilbert, Arizona, at the residence where Brandon Boudreaux was residing at the time.
And then there was a second receipt there and some print off to the side. Could you go over what that is?
So the second receipt is dated October 18th, 2019 at 9:05 p.m. and it is a Chick-fil-A receipt from Ammon, Idaho, again for food and beverage, and it's a cash transaction in the amount of $8.15.
And I think just to clarify the time on that receipt. I may have heard you wrong. I thought you said 9:05.
Oh, I'm sorry, 8:05 p.m. Though from the image itself, I can't read it right now what it says, but I recall it was at 8:05 p.m.
And I may have misheard you, so I just wanted to clarify that. Was there any significance of the October 18th date to you?
Yes. Tammy Daybell had passed away on the night of October 18th into 19th.
As part of your investigation, did you also look into determining when some devices were purchased?
So there were some additional devices that we were trying to identify where they'd come from and obtain records for them, yes.
And did you, in fact, go to Walmart to obtain or attempt to obtain those records?
Yes, I did. So when the warrant was executed on the Homer J. Maximus Google account, there was another phone number, at least one other phone number that was associated with the Google account, and it was a number unfamiliar to us. We obtained a warrant for information on that. It was a track phone purchased from a Walmart in Idaho Falls at 500 South Utah Avenue. I went to the Walmart and obtained the receipt for the transaction for the purchase of that. It was purchased on September 25th, 2019 at 19:10 and 51 seconds. And it was a cash purchase. In the course of reviewing the device that I've referred to for Alex Cox and his Google account, I showed that his device was in the vicinity of that Walmart between 1903 and 1918 on September 25th, 2019. So around the same time that this other phone was purchased. There was another device. When the Rexburg Police Department went to they went to try to do a welfare check on JJ on November 26th of 2019. They came back the following day on the 27th and executed a warrant at that address and 107. And the next door address, I believe, was 174. But they found 107 largely empty. But many of the belongings that belonged to Alex Cox were now in 175. So during the execution of the warrant, they took certain items of evidence, but those items remained there in the residence, and Alex Cox never returned to get them. And he passed away in December. And in January of 2020, the property management company began to dispose of that property. I think some was thrown away, but some was retained in storage by the property management company and the maintenance manager. And investigators, including myself and investigators with the Rexburg Police Department, went and looked at these items. I went on multiple occasions to look at these items, photograph them, and certain items were taken as potential of investigative interest. But when the property management company inventoried items they removed, they found 2 cell phones. And one of those cell phones, they turned over those phones to the Rexburg Police Department. One of those phones was found to be a track phone purchased from a Walmart, and it was purchased from the Walmart in Rexburg, Idaho at 1451 North 2nd East. And I went to get an investigation regarding that device and found it was purchased on October 8th, 2019 at 15:25 and 3 seconds. And it it was a cash transaction, and when in the course of reviewing Alex's Cox primary device and his Google account number, he was at that Walmart his device was at that Walmart between 15:01 and 15:37 on October 8th, 2019.
And when you went to retrieve the information regarding these phones, did Walmart in fact give you copies of the receipts?
Yes, they did.
And if you were shown what's purported to be copies of those, do you believe you'd be able to recognize them?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask that, and I do not know if we have copies for defense counsel. Oh, it sounds like they already have them. So they are marked as states 227A and 227B. If I could have those shown to counsel and then the witness.
Yes, you may.
And do those appear to be accurate copies of the receipts that you received from Walmart?
Yes, they do.
And those are the receipts that we've been referencing just now?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admission of state's exhibits.
227A and B.
Yes, 227A and B.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, may I have voir dire?
You may.
Please take a look at 227A. And you've been an investigator with the FBI for 20-something years, is that right?
Yes.
And how many receipts have you gotten from Walmart over those years? A bunch, I'm probably sure.
Yes. Fair number.
So what specific to 227A is it that you know that this is the receipt that you got from them?
From my report, I reflected that in my report when I went there, that this is the receipt I obtained from them, and I recognize the receipt.
Okay. You didn't put your initials on it or somehow differentiate it from anything else that you might have done?
Well, it was attached to the report that I created from that incident.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak over you. When you wrote your report, which parts of this receipt did you reference?
The date and time that it was received, and I think that's what's in my report.
Did you reference the ST number? I'm assuming that's the store number.
I referenced the location it came from.
Okay, so you didn't reference the store number.
I can't recall what's in my report.
You didn't reference the OP number.
I'm not sure if I did. No.
Okay, you didn't reference the TE number.
I would have to look at my report to see exactly.
You want to do that?
Sure.
Should we do that? Let's do that.
Okay.
Okay. Can somebody get him his report? That's fine. No.
All right, for the record, Ms. Blake, would you indicate what the witness is being handed there?
Your Honor, the witness is being handed a laptop that has the report that is being referenced pulled up on it.
Very well.
Yes, sir. Okay.
You want to take the laptop? Has that refreshed your recollection?
Yes, that helps.
All right. So what information did you put in your report that specifically references this specific receipt, 227A?
So I just referenced the store number it came from and then the phone number associated with the device. So the phone number would have been associated with the underlying data related to that purchase, which we had obtained from track phone. So I'd have to look at the track phone record to make that connection between the phone number and these particular serial numbers for the device.
And when did you get the receipt?
On April 10th of 2020.
Okay. And when did you get the track phone numbers?
They were provided. I'm not sure exactly when we got those.
Judge, I'm going to object to these. I don't think you have specific knowledge to say that these are the specific report or specific receipts that he's indicating that they are.
Any response from the state?
Yes, Your Honor. I think the witness had said that he recognizes the receipts. They were attached to his reports, and they are what were provided to him by Walmart. He's also referenced the date and time located on the receipts, matching with the date and times that he reviewed.
All right, I've considered that objection, balancing out the objection and the state's response. I do find there was an adequate foundation laid with the testimony of the witness who's indicated that he referenced not only the store number but a corresponding phone number, that he personally pulled these receipts and recognizes them. So they may be and will be admitted, and any further questions would be subject to cross-examination. So the objections overruled. 27A and B are both admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. And so as you were talking about these receipts, the receipt times then matched data location in regards to a device related to Alex Cox?
Yes, the device I referenced in my review that I was reviewing, including that data that was provided to me for his Google account. In the course of that review, it was near these locations at the times referenced.
And you previously said that this essentially became a joint investigation involving some other occurrences in Arizona?
Yes.
Do you recall looking at phone data from beginning Monday, September 30th through October 3rd, of 2019 related to a device associated with Alex Cox?
Yes, so that the device I've been referencing and the Google account, I first looked at it for the month of September. At a later time, Nick Balance provided me with another data file for October, so this actually goes between the two files. But on Monday, October 30th, there seemed to be a deviation from its normal pattern. From 13:17 to 16:32, the device is at 565 Pioneer Road, number 107, Alex Cox's apartment. And then there's a period of nearly 3 days. It doesn't go back to 107, and it does not appear back at 107 until Thursday, October 3rd, 2019 at 14:20. So beginning on the afternoon of September 30th, that night, that device appears to be at 175 that night. Then the night of October 1st, also at 175. And then the night of October 2nd at 175. And I also believe the entire day of October 2nd, it was also in 175. And then not until the afternoon of October 3rd does it go back to 107.
And were there some other data points associated with that device that aren't indicated on this slide?
Yes, this is a summary of what the activity showed.
And is this a summary of the activity that drew your attention?
Yes.
And that was because it deviated from the normal pattern with regard to that phone?
Yes.
Did you also look at location data related to several gun ranges?
So in the course of my review, I documented periods of time when the device was at or near gun ranges, specifically a gun range in Rexburg, Idaho, the Unified Sportsman's Gun Club range, and then one in Fremont County as well.
And on this slide, does this cover the dates that you found the device to be at or near a gun range?
Yes, so this is a portion of the data for the particular days of September 3rd, September 26th, and September 27th. So on September 3rd, between 1345 and 1346, it appears to be close to this gun range, a very narrow window of time. Then it travels to a Walmart from 1405 to 1436, and then it's back at the gun range after that from 1459 to 1651. On the 26th, from 1654 to 1858 appears to be at the gun range, and I've noted here that a lot of this data is cell tower data, not very specific. It's in the area of the gun range. Is it possible it's not at that gun range the entire time or not at that gun range at all? Yes. It's just in the vicinity of there based on the quality of the data that day. And also on September 27th, we have a similar situation from 1554 to 1845. The device is near or at this gun range, the Unified Sportsman Gun Club in Rexburg, Idaho.
Did you also look at data related to September 28th?
So on Saturday, September 28th, it was also at that same shooting range, the Unified Sportsman's Gun Club. And from 1525 to 1758, we had a series of data points in that area. On this particular day, we had a number of GPS data points as further down into the range. So on this overhead map, this is a snapshot of the range. Here in the lower part would be a firing line for one of the ranges, and this looks like a firing line as well. And at a gun range, it's typical for people to set up a target, and when the line is clear, to go downrange to get either set up their target or go look at a target they've been firing at, or retrieve one when they're done. And it appears we have the device going downrange down to this furthest berm. This is a rifle range. This is a 100 meter, 200 meter, and 300 meter berm. So it appears to go possibly to the 200 meter, but also to the 300 meter berm, and then return to the firing line again.
And is there, over in what would be my right-hand corner on the lower side, can you tell us what we're seeing there, what that other structure would be?
This?
Yes.
So this is another gun range. It appears to have a much closer berm to the firing line. That appears probably, based on this being 100 yards, I would guess a 50-yard range. But something that somebody could probably shoot rifle or pistol on that. Generally, this would be a rifle range based on the distance, in my experience.
And based on the data points that you recovered, did it appear that the device was over in the shorter pistol range?
Not on this particular day. At least we had no data from that.
Did you also look at data involving the device being located at shooting ranges or gun ranges in the month of October?
Yes.
And what did you locate?
So on October 7th, it actually went to multiple gun ranges, some for appears to be very narrow windows of time, so it might have just almost just driven by, went there and left immediately. But there was one at 1240, and it was really just to the place and then left immediately in that vicinity. And then it went back to Alex's apartment at 565 Pioneer Road, was there for only maybe a minute, and then it went back to a different gun range, in Rexburg, the Unified Sportsman's Gun Club, and it was there from 1325 to 1329 in that vicinity. And then it drove to the Fremont County Sportsman's Club public shooting range, again, the one it had been earlier in the morning, and was there from 1350 to 1416. It left there and traveled to Alex's apartment at 565 Pioneer Road, number 107. Again, was there from 1437 to 1443. And then travels from there back to the Fremont County Sportsman's Club public shooting range again from 1503 to about 1524. And then it's in that vicinity.
And then did he go back on October 8th?
So there were 2 visits to shooting ranges on October 8th. The device appears to go to the Sportsman's Gun Club, one in Rexburg, but only for a very short time, 1 or 2 minutes. It appears to go there and leave. And then it goes from there to the Fremont County Sportsman's Club public shooting range, gets there at 11:07 and stays till 12:29. I did note that there were, the device appeared to be near around 100-yard range, at least for part of the time it was there.
And generally the 100-yard range, would that be getting over into where people normally shoot rifles?
Yes.
Were there some additional days in October when the device was at or near gun ranges?
Yes. On October 12th, it went to the Fremont County Sportsman's Club public shooting range, and was there from 1457 to 1701 in that area. And in here, I noted that it had spent time around the 50-yard range. And then on October 13th, it was back at the same shooting range again from 1249 to 1440. And it seemed to be at 2 different ranges, one a rifle range and one a pistol range.
Did you locate additional data points for October 15th of 2019?
So it went again to two shooting ranges on the 15th. They went to starting in the morning at 18:01 to 9:20. It was at the Fremont County Sportsman's Club public shooting range, again near the 50-yard range. And then it left there and traveled to Walmart from 9:34 to about 10:15. And it traveled to Alex's apartment, 10:24 to 12:16. Then to the apartment for Lori Vallow in 175 from 12:17 to 13:17. And then back to Alex's apartment, 13:19 to 13:27. It then leaves there and travels to the vicinity of the residence of Chad Daybell, 13:41 to 13:56. It's there, about a 15-minute period. It then departs there, goes back to the apartment for Lori Vallow from 14:54 to 15:15, and then back to Alex's apartment from 15:17 to 16:01, and then back to the same shooting range it had been at in the morning at the Fremont County Public Shooting Range, and it's there from 16:23 to 18:17, and it's a little unclear, but it's kind of between a 50-yard and a 100-yard range in that area.
Was that the last date in October that you discovered any location data associating Alex Cox with being in the vicinity, or a device associated with him in the vicinity of a gun range?
Yes, that was the last time I saw him travel. The device travel to a gun range at least in the month of October that I reviewed.
Did you focus in on the date of October 9th, 2019?
Yes, I did.
And was there a reason that you were specifically looking at October 9th of 2019?
There was an incident at the residence of Chad Daybell on that evening.
And are you aware what the incident was?
Yes, it was reported that a person wearing a mask had pointed a weapon or a paintball gun at Tammy Daybell while she was unloading her car in front of the garage.
And I should back up and ask, is this part of the reason why you were looking at the data location involving gun ranges?
Part of it, yes.
What was the other part of that?
I really reviewed all of the data, but I didn't note these trips to the gun ranges. But because of our concern that the weapons could have been used in some kind of crime.
And when you say the weapons, were those weapons recovered from a residence?
There were weapons recovered from Unit 175 where Alex Cox had left his belongings.
Did those also have relevance based on the attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux?
Yes.
So then, based on that attempted shooting of Tammy and focusing in on October 9th, what are we seeing in this slide?
So on October 9th, the device goes to Idaho Falls, and while in Idaho Falls, it goes to the Sportsman's Warehouse at 2909 South 25th East in Ammon, Idaho, which is really a suburb just east of Idaho Falls. And from 1534 to 1612, there's a series of data points in and around the Sportsman's Warehouse. These are all Wi-Fi data points with a radius of 15 to 87 in level of precision. And these are plotted on an overhead map here from the file I was reviewing. And on the left here are some of the initial data points with the dates and times out near this end of the parking lot. This here is actually the Sportsman's Warehouse itself. And after these initial data points, we have a number of them that appear to be located within the store itself. Of course, because of the margin, we have one, for example, up here. that they're located in this area of the store. And so for that period of time, I thought possibly the device and Alex Cox could have been visiting that store.
And based on your belief that he may have been in that store, what, if anything, did you do further in the investigation?
I went into the Sportsman's Warehouse and attempted to conduct additional investigation.
And what additional investigation did you conduct?
I contacted the Sportsman's Warehouse and retrieved all of the receipts for all purchases for a 45-minute period around the time that the device was there.
And you say around the time the device was there, so did you look at times prior to when the first data point was hitting?
Yes, I think I pulled it from 15:30 to 16:15, so a few minutes either side.
Did they provide the responsive receipts?
Yes.
Did any receipt in particular draw your attention?
There were about 60 transactions. That's not the exact number, but approximately, from 4 different registers. And so I reviewed those while I was at the store. And one particular receipt caught my attention.
And I guess I should be clear, did some of those receipts, were the purchases made with a credit or debit card?
Yes, most of them were.
Were any of those credit or debit cards associated with Alex Cox?
Not to my knowledge, no, and we were looking at that, and I provided those receipts to our financial analyst to review that.
And so with this particular receipt, was it a cash receipt?
Yes.
What else about this receipt drew your attention?
One particular item on the list, and it's really hard to read on this receipt, but this bullfrog rain says here, and this is as it appears on the receipt. The names on the right for these 5 items. So the bullfrog rain is it's a rain pant. The brand name is Frog Tog, and bullfrog is the model of the rain pant, I guess. And that particular rain pant, I was aware that a pair of bullfrog rain pants were in the possession of the property management company who had cleaned out Alex Cox's residence and his belongings, and that was one of the items that they had removed, that he had a pair of those pants.
And was that the same property company and the same that had brought in that cell phone that we talked about previously?
Yes.
Were there other things about the receipt that drew your attention?
Yes, so I found out what these items were. The first one, that M's Woodland Camo, was a Woodland Camo beanie. The flip mitt, Kenai flip mitt, is a type of glove. And the thermal 3-hole FA is actually a face mask. It's a ski mask. And then a soft drink was the other item that was purchased.
While you were in the store, did you in fact attempt to locate these items?
I did. So on the receipt reflects 2 unique numbers associated with a particular item. It has a SKU, which is a stock keeping unit number. And that's these numbers listed here. Hard to read, but that's the SKU. And then under it is another number, the UPC, or the Universal Product Code. Universal Product Code. It's my understanding the Universal Product Code is a number assigned by the manufacturer to an item, and it's specific to that item. The SKU was assigned by Sportsman's Warehouse as like an inventory control number. And so I was able to go and look at some of these items that were in stock at the store and verify the SKU with the SKU of the item in there and confirm what it was. And I took photographs of the items.
And you say you tried to determine the items that were in stock. Were any of these items not in stock?
The Woodland Camo beanie was no longer in stock, and I couldn't look at it.
Did you also look at some of these items on the website for Sportsman's?
Yes. So I could go to Sportsman's website and also search the SKU on the website and find inventory items using just the SKU. And I did that as well to confirm that I had obtained the same information and it was the same item.
Were you able to retrieve an image of the Woodland cam or the beanie from the website?
No, it was also out of stock on the website.
With regard to the other items, can you indicate what we're seeing in this photo or this slide here?
So this is a Glacier Glove Alaska River flip mitt. This one we have photographs here of is actually a small. On the receipt, it appeared as a Kenai flip mitt, but according to the SKU, this is the same item. However, the SKU is size specific, is my understanding, and so it wasn't the exact same SKU, but this is all they had in stock was a small. But the one that was purchased, according to their inventory system, was a large. That's particular SKU. So this flip mitt it's designed to allow the finger, the bottom half of the fingers, the ends of the fingers to be exposed. So you can do something where you require dexterity with your fingers, manipulating your cell phone or tying a fishing knot or using a firearm. And then can then use the mitt, and the mitt can then fold over those fingers to keep them warm. And so you can, without removing your gloves, can expose those fingers to do tasks that you need that manual dexterity.
And these are, in fact, copies of photos that were taken by you in the store?
Yes.
And then looking at the thermo 3-hole, I believe is how it was identified on the receipt. Is this an accurate depiction of a photo you took?
Yes, correct. So based on the SKU, this is the same item, though the brand on the tag was Igloo's 3-hole ski mask, but how it appears on the receipt is a thermal 3-hole FA. But the picture on the right, the gray picture, the gray mask is the one that was in stock. It had the same SKU as the one on the receipt. And when I went to the website and also searched the SKU, they had a photo on their website of the mask, and that was this one. And it was also listed as the same item on the website as well, using the same SKU.
And then we talked a little bit about those frog tog pants having significance or drawing your attention. Can you tell us what we're seeing in this slide?
So these are the frog tog pants they had in stock there in the store. And the SKU for these pants in the store are the same ones as on the receipt. And the number on the receipt, the SKU is actually, again, size specific. And so this had the same SKU as the receipt. And so I took a photo of the pants. I took a photo of the pants and also the tag with the UPC. And to look up the SKU, I might say we had to use a handheld scanner that they have, an inventory scanner, to verify the SKU was the same. But I did that with an employee helping me, and I looked at the scanner to verify they were the same.
Did you also look at some searches done by on the Homer J. Maximus account?
Yes. So Google has a search function, and when you search Google, they can track information regarding searches that you've conducted. And on the Homer J. Maximus Google account, a number of searches were conducted, and including there was a search on October 9th of 2019, and the search term that was searched was frog tog sizing for pants.
And October 9th is the same day that Alex Cox's device was in the Sportsman's Warehouse vicinity?
Yes, that was the date that, yes, correct.
And then just to clarify as well, some property turned over to law enforcement from the property management company of those Pioneer Place apartments. turned over a pair of pants similar to this?
Yes. So, Detective Ray Hermosillo at the Rexburg Police Department had been in communication with this property management person about the pants previously, but she still had them in her possession when I went there this day. But I alerted Ray Hermosillo to finding these pants, and he went and retrieved them from her. And when he got them, they actually still had the tag on them, and it still had the sportsman's tag on them. And it was, it had the same UPC and SKU, and it was also Frog Talk brand Bullfrog rain pants, size large.
And did you personally observe those pants that were recovered?
Yes.
And did they appear to be the same pants that were seen in the photo, or similar?
Yes.
Did you look at additional location data associated with a device associated with Alex Cox on October 9th of 2019?
Yes, so this is that same device that I've been reviewing through September, and then into October I continued that review and what its activities were on the 9th. So I actually started that review, those files, after I went to Sportsman's Warehouse this first time. Nick Balance had alerted me to those data points the first time I went there, but then subsequently I reviewed that same data and more, and continued it on through all the data points, but from start to finish.
What did you learn about what other location data from that day drew your attention?
So after the device is at the Sportsman's Warehouse, it leaves the Sportsman's Warehouse approximately 1612, shortly after that purchase was made, and travels north from Ammon, Idaho. It travels up to Rexburg on Highway 20, but it doesn't go back to his residence where he would normally have turned off Highway 20. It bypasses the exit for his residence, and it continues on to the vicinity of 202 North, 1900 East in Rexburg, Idaho. That's the residence of Chad Daybell. However, it doesn't seem to stop at his address. It drives by his address. It drives over to Highway 20, which is it's about a little over 2 miles east of the Daybell residence. It turns around and drives by the Daybell residence again, and then drives south out of the area and back to 107 at 565 Pioneer Road, so Alex's apartment. It arrives at his apartment at 1716, and then the device appears to stay there all that night and until 11:28 the following day. So again, I have it ends on the 9th. 23:53 is the last data point on the 9th, and then it picks up at 3 minutes after midnight at 00:03, and as their next data point, but there are data points between these times, and then it stops at 11:28 when it does leave 107 again.
And can you describe what we're seeing in this slide?
So this is an overhead map of the area around the Daybell residence and just south of the residence. So this is the data points that I referred to, what that appears to be that the device drives up near the residence, drives past it, turns around, and comes back. The first data points, there's actually 2 down here at 1649. You see 1 here at 1650, 1651, 1652, and it continues across until it turns around, and then it appears to have come back. We have one here at 1658, for example, and there's one off here at 1701. And I can't tell you exactly what the radius is on that one, but it appears to continue on south. There's one at 1703, and then we see it go south out of the area and arrive back at his apartment.
And we see one data point. There's a yellow line, a thicker yellow line, and there's a data point up by that. Do you know what that thicker yellow line represents?
Yes, this is Salem Road, or 1900 East, and this is 200 North, and that yellow line is going by the Daybell residence, so that yellow pin is where the Daybell residence would be at that intersection.
And then if we look at this next slide, can you tell us what we're looking at here?
So this is a zoomed-in view of a similar area as the last map. So we have Salem Road, or 1900 East, 200 North here on the south, and the Daybell residence at the corner of this intersection. And this had this is those same data points as the device traveled over to Highway 20. And as it's traveling over to Highway 20, there's a data point right here, a 1651 GPS data point, and that one had a 6-meter radius. There's another one here that is less precise, though, at 1652. So I can't say if it paused here at all. If it did pause, it would have been for a very short period of time. It couldn't have been more than a minute or two.
And by where that data point is, there's a black line, a thicker black or gray line. Do you know what that is?
So yes, this is a canal that runs under 200 North. I believe like an irrigation canal. And
and was there anything else that seemed significant about that particular location?
So, in light of the events that took place regarding Tammy Daybell, that somebody had allegedly shot at her or pointed some kind of weapon or paintball gun at her, law enforcement had done an investigation regarding that, and I'd also been to this location. And I noted that this road is fairly narrow. There's really no shoulder to speak of, and it slopes down into a ditch on either side of the road. And based on where I was looking for a possible location where this person could have gone, or if there was a vehicle nearby where that vehicle might have been, and there really was no place for a vehicle that I could find, or very few. And one of the few places would be in somebody's driveway to get off the road, which could arouse suspicion. Or right here near this canal, there's a little pull off for basically one vehicle. I think there was something to adjust water flow or to the ditch right there, and maybe a gate into this large pasture right here. But the next closest road is 2100 East if you go east, and that's a full mile from Salem Road to go that way. And to go north, it's a similar distance up to, I believe you hit the canal before you even hit a road again going north. So there's really not a lot of roads up in this area. So that area was a potential of interest to us, because if a person had done such a thing and needed a vehicle to get out of the area, that was a possible place they could have parked.
And previously, we talked about a device that was purchased at Walmart, and that device was ultimately associated with Alex Cox on October 8th. Is that the same one that we talked about previously?
Yes.
Were you able to determine when that device was activated?
Yes, that device that was purchased on the 8th was not activated until October 9th in the afternoon at 1:20 p.m.
And if we go back a few slides here, you had talked about the main device associated with Alex Cox returned to that Pioneer Road, his residence, on the night of October 9th at about 7:16 p.m. or in the evening?
Yes.
And it appeared to remain there for the night?
Yes, it did.
With regard to this new device, did you notice any activity or learn of any activity on that device?
So the device, once it was activated, it communicated with another device that was attributed to Chad Daybell during the period of 17:13 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., and it was communicated by text message. And I believe there were 10 texts between that time period.
Do you know, was any location data recovered in relation to the device we're talking about now?
No. So this device that was activated that day, it didn't. We were not able to get any location data related to the device, and even the cell phone carrier couldn't even give us cell towers that it had used. And my understanding was, at least with that particular carrier, they didn't keep that information when it was text messages and not calls. And so because it was text messages, we don't know where the device was, just that there was transactional records.
And I believe because they were only transactional records, you were not able to recover the content of those texts either? Correct.
Most carriers don't retain content, at least at this time is my understanding. And the few that did retain it, they retained it for very short periods of time, a week or less, I believe.
And Your Honor, I'm just looking at the time. I'm at a point in the testimony if the court wanted to break, or I can continue to move forward, but we're at a point that it could make sense to take the lunch break.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and do that? So we'll be on lunch break. Let's reconvene at 12:45.
All right, please.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right, is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready to proceed?
We are, Judge.
All right, let's go ahead and have the jurors brought back in, please, Mr. Bailiff.
Yes, Your Honor. All right, please. Excuse me, President Cameron, for your honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bailiff. Please be seated. Okay, we're back on the record on CR 22211624, State of Idaho versus Lori Vallow. The state continues with its case in chief. Mr. Wright, you've previously been sworn and are still under oath for your testimony this afternoon. Ms. Blake, you can continue with your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. And just for the benefit of the jurors, I think before we broke for lunch, we'd been talking about a new device that was activated on October 9th. And is it correct that the device normally associated with Alex Cox, or most often associated with him, had remained at his residence as far as any data location on the night of October 9th?
Yes, that's correct.
And then this new device became active, and there were the text messages with the device associated with Chad Daybell between 7:13 and 10:30?
Yes, that's correct.
And then with regard to the month of October, did you look at some additional location data?
Yes, I did.
Were there some specific days or a date that you focused on?
I observed some activity between October 16th and October 18th where the device left Rexburg area and went to Las Vegas.
And could you determine endpoint in Las Vegas, or one of the stops at least there?
Yes. So it left on the 16th, and from Lori Vallow's address 175. It went to the Comfort Inn and Suites in Hurricane, Utah, along I-15, and it stopped there for the night, and then the device continued on into McCarran International Airport, which is now Harry Reid International Airport. It was there on Thursday, October 17, 2019. It was there from 1356 to 1410, and then it drove back from that point to back to Rexburg. There were some other stops on this trip, but like gas and restaurants and things like that, but the trip was fairly continuous other than the overnight.
And did the trip have any relevance that you determined to the investigation?
Yes.
And what was that?
That Lori Vallow had taken a flight from Las Vegas on the 17th.
And did the date of Friday, October 18th become important in the investigation?
Yes.
And why was that?
The night of the 18th into the 19th was the night that Tammy Daybell died.
And can you describe what we're seeing on this particular slide?
So on the so on the afternoon of the 18th, the device had left the apartments at 565 Pioneer Road and drove south to Idaho Falls. It was there for the afternoon at a few different locations, but its last location was in the vicinity of the Chick-fil-A at 1958 to about 2132. It's in or around that Chick-fil-A area in Ammon, Idaho. At around 2132, it drives north from Ammon, Idaho towards Rexburg. It actually bypasses the normal exit to go to Alex Cox's residence and continues north towards the Daybell residence. So this map is an overhead view of Rexburg is in the southern part of this map. The Daybell residence is this pin on the north part of the map. And this is part of that trip back from Ammon, Idaho, and Idaho Falls area, back up towards the Daybell residence. So at 22:05, approximately, it's near this interchange exit on Highway 20. and then it continues north to this area. It says Salem right there, but right at that intersection of Salem Road, and I think it's Salem Church Road is the east-west road. There's a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints chapel there, and the device stays in that area for a period of time, and there's a period of time when we receive data, and then there's a period of time when we receive no data, and then the next data point that appears is that after this period of no data is a data point at 2353. We get a data point right here. That's actually a Wi-Fi hit of about 110 meter radius. And starting at that point, there continues to be data after that regular data as the device actually doesn't go back to Rexburg. It continues on south of Rexburg back to Idaho Falls.
Did the device remain in Idaho Falls for the duration of that night? Could you tell?
Yes, it appeared to go to a hotel in Idaho Falls, a Hilton Garden there, and stay the night.
At that point, do you know if Alex Cox still had the apartment or the residence at Pioneer, on Pioneer Road?
Yes, on subsequent nights, he stayed in 107 on Pioneer Road.
And with regard to that Chick-fil-A notation, do you recall some of the receipts that we looked at earlier that were recovered from that Jeep?
Yes.
Did the receipt recovered regarding Chick-fil-A on Friday, October 18th, did it appear to fall within that time frame?
Yes, it was October 18th at 8:05 or 20:05 from that same Chick-fil-A.
And if we look at this next slide, can you describe what we're seeing in this one?
So this is part of that same map, but just zoomed in. And this shows the spot where the device lingers in this area here. This is the LDS church here. And this is the Daybell residence on the north part of the map. The distance between those 2 points along Salem Road is about 2.6 miles. And it stays in this area beginning at 2207. And we get 38 minutes of data points. And then there's an hour and a half of no data before we get that data point back on Highway 20 as it's heading south.
And through your investigation, did you learn of Alex Cox knowing anyone else in that area besides Chad Daybell?
No, we did not identify anyone else that he knew in that area other than Chad Daybell.
And in this next slide, can you describe what we're seeing here?
So this is a zoomed-in view of that LDS chapel at this is Salem Road, and I think this is Salem Church Road, and at 3462 North Salem Road. And the first data points are on the left, and we get 2 at 2207, and at least one of those is a GPS coordinate. And then for the next
I'm sorry, can we have him please talk into the microphone? I'm really having a hard time hearing him.
Okay.
So the next data points are over here, and these are Wi-Fi data points. We get a total of 16 data points between 2207 and 2245 before we stop receiving any more data for a period of time. I think the previous slide shows that margin of error. The one 2 slides back shows what the margin was on those Wi-Fi data points. Yes, there it is. So these 16 points ranged from some were GPS and some were Wi-Fi, 11 meter radius to 122 meter radius, or those 16 data points that we saw populated. Some appear on the house, some appear by the church. So at 22:45, there isn't any more data from there until 23:53, when that data point appears on Highway 20 heading south. And then again, there's regular data after that as it continues on to Idaho Falls. The distance from the church to the point where we get that first data point after the period of no data at 23:53 is about a 7-minute drive. So if the device was in a vehicle traveling on the highway, it maybe would have left. If it had come from this spot, we don't know, but an estimate is maybe it left at 23:46, roughly. Deduct 7 minutes from 23:53 could give you an idea of the span of time. But we just don't know where the device is for an hour and 8 minutes, other than it does appear just south of this location again.
And when we see the data points on that residence located next to the church, are those data points within a radius that the vehicle or the device could have been in the church parking lot?
Yes.
And with regard, I think this is what you were referencing as well, but is this just depicting, again, those times?
Yes, correct. That's that same information I just mentioned.
And through your investigation, you reviewed the data location for the month of October, is that correct, of 2019?
Yes.
Is this a summary of the times that a device or that device was in the vicinity or at the Daybell residence?
Yes, during the month of October, I identified 3 dates that it seemed to go into the vicinity of the Daybell residence. The first one was October 9th, which I talked about previously, when it doesn't seem to stop at the residence. It just drives up to the intersection near the residence, drives east to Highway 20, turns around and drives back by the residence before driving south back to Alex Cox's residence. On October 15th, 2019, it went to the residence again between 13:41 and 13:56, about 15 minutes. These data points were in the front or area of the residence. So there weren't any data points anywhere else on the property. They just seemed to be near the front of the residence. And then on Friday, October 18th, 2019, it drives to that church, which is 2.6 miles south of the Daybell residence. None of the data that I saw for the 18th showed that device going closer than 2.6 miles or going up to the actual Daybell residence.
Thank you. If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
You may.
Your Honor, I do not have any additional questions. I do have the jump drive to admit as the actual exhibit. The court already has the printed out slides.
Very well. We'll have that admitted as the jump drive with the PowerPoint presentation.
And it is exhibit 299 for the record.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Blake. That'll conclude the direct examination then. Mr. Thomas, are you conducting cross?
I am, Judge.
Very well.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wright.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. So it looks like you went to the FBI Academy in 1997, is that right?
Yes,
Okay. Is that after you went to college? Did you go to college?
I did.
And was that prior to 1997?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you go to school?
Southern Utah University.
Okay. And then was this your first job out of college?
I worked for a manufacturing company while I was in college. At the same time I was going to school.
Okay. And was this your first job out of college, though, after the
Pretty much,
manufacturing?
yes.
Okay. You indicate that you did your last 11 years in Denver in the Violent Crimes Unit, Crimes Against Children. Is that right?
Yes.
And that was 2007 to 2018?
Yes.
And then at what point did you become a contract special investigator?
I've been doing that a little over a year.
Oh, from today?
Yes.
I see. So you were
So after my retirement, I came on as a contractor doing some investigative work for the FBI.
Okay. So you were a special agent during the time of most of this investigation. Is that right?
Yes, from the start of the FBI investigation in November of 2019, when I was first notified, I was the case agent until my retirement at the end of August of 2021.
Okay, so you retired in August of 2021?
Yes.
And then you just couldn't stay away? Had to start doing some consulting?
Pretty much, yeah. All I do now is just background investigations on security clearances, government employee security clearances. I'm not doing criminal investigations anymore.
Gotcha. And are you still working out of the Pocatello office, or are you at a different office?
I still reside in Pocatello, but most of my work, I don't have to go into the office.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But is it field type work where you go out to people's homes?
Exactly. They send me work orders for interviews for these background investigations. I conduct them and I submit them.
Okay.
I can work from
All
home.
right, Mr. Wright, Mr. Thomas, too. We need to make sure you don't speak over each other, please.
Right. I apologize, Judge. I'm sorry. All right. Okay, so you were the case agent from November of 2019 to August of 2021. Is that right?
Yes. There was one other agent assigned, but yes.
Okay. Who became the case agent after you left?
So Travis Homer, who was the other case agent and worked with me, he continued on as the case agent. I don't know if there were any more after that, if he was the only one assigned.
Okay. So you testify that you had some interaction with Ian Pulowski. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was?
I first met him on December 5th of 2019. He came to the Rexburg Police Department and he was interviewed. I sat in on that first interview. There was another follow-up interview, I believe, the following day, but I was not present for that one.
Okay. And at some point, you were kind of the liaison between him and the law enforcement agencies. Is that right?
I probably was the primary. He was communicating with Detective Ray Hermosillo as well, but I interacted with him over a period of about almost a month. We had several communications and discussions.
Okay. So when he was wearing a wire, well, I shouldn't say it's a wire. It was some sort of a listening device, or?
Yes, I don't remember. It was some kind of concealment device that he could record with, and the Rexburg Police Department had that device and gave that to him.
Okay. And so when he had possession of that device, you were his main contact to either download the information or get that information. Is that correct?
That's fair to say. One of them. He may have been in communication with Ray Hermosillo, but I did communicate with him about the device, and I also, on at least multiple occasions, retrieved that device and gave it to Detective Hermosillo so they could take the recordings into custody.
Okay. All right. So there was some talk of you dealing with your Nick Balance, who is the member of the cast team. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he gave you some specific dates, or you asked him to give you some specific dates between September 1 and September 30th, 2019. Is that correct?
Yes. He had provided dates in the investigation based on what he was reviewing, but he works on a lot of different cases for different people to assist case agents like me. So he's helping me by feeding me stuff of potential interest, but eventually it got to the point that although it was helpful, I wanted to see it all. And that's where he provided a file for September of 2019, and I started going through it myself to see if I could see anything else that had been overlooked. And then I did it again later for the month of October.
Okay. And I believe you mentioned a couple of times that you were seeing patterns, or you were things were outside of what you would call a pattern. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
All right. And so how long, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. You've been a special agent for a long time, done a lot of surveillance, I'm sure. How long does it take for you to develop enough data where you can have a pattern on a particular person?
In general terms or in this specific case?
Well, let's talk general terms first, and then we'll go specifics.
If I saw something happen every day for a week at a certain time or a certain place, I would sort of think that's a pattern that they do that at a certain time or place. In this case, I only had those 3 months to really analyze. I mean, those 2 months to really look at. So when I say a pattern, it's based only on that information.
Okay. I guess there's a difference between having a pattern. If you're a college student, you see that person leave their house at 9 a.m., they go to a particular building on a particular campus at 9:15, they come out at 11 o'clock, they come home, there's a specific pattern.
Yes, especially for somebody that's going to school or employed. They generally are arriving roughly the same time, leaving the same time. In this case, we didn't see those kind of patterns. He didn't appear to have employment or anything like that. So what he did in a given day, it varied quite a bit from a day to day.
So when you say pattern, I mean that, especially in this particular context, it's kind of a loose term. Like there's really not a pattern, right?
So I believe when I mention pattern, at least the one I'm thinking of is where it went at night, and I think I just detailed what I saw, which was in the month of September at least. From the time it first appeared at 107 through the end of the month, it went to 107 during those particular hours in the middle of the night.
Okay. And you're just talking about the cell.
And so for my pattern is, though, what is that 25-day period? It did that.
Okay. But it's kind of hard to come up with a real pattern based on a 25-day period, right?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, that's the extent of my knowledge.
Okay. And all the data points that you got were for Alex Cox, right?
Yes, that's the one I reviewed. Now, there were other devices that were being looked at, but to my understanding in the investigation, the other ones did not have the extent of location information as this particular device and Google account did.
Okay. And as far as your PowerPoint and all the things that you went through today, they were all just Alex Cox's information?
Exactly, just that one phone number and just that one Google account.
Okay. Didn't have any information on Lori Vallow?
Correct.
Didn't know when you didn't know her pattern? She didn't have a pattern?
No, I did not look at that, and especially what I talked about was not referring to any device that she had other than that one photograph that I mentioned came from an iCloud account for her.
Okay. And you mentioned that you used some mapping software for the GPS data that you were receiving. Is that correct?
Yes. So that was in the format that... Oh, go on. I'll let you ask your question. Sorry.
I just kind of want to know what was the mapping software that you were using?
So Nick Balance took those data points. He's getting all the raw data from the carrier, from Google, and he imported that into a Google Earth file. So that's all I did. I didn't create the mapping software. I didn't use anything other than what he provided, which was this Google Earth file that those points are mapped in. And then these images we saw today were literally still shots from the same mapping software that I looked at. That's the exact thing. That's the same thing I looked at, other than in the actual file you can click on individual data points and pull up additional information, underlying data.
Okay. So you use the Google mapping software. There are other mapping softwares out there, right?
Oh, yes, sure.
And you could take these same raw data and plug them into other mapping softwares, correct?
Yes, you should be able to.
And you can see if the mapping software from Google would match up with the other mapping software.
Sure, yes.
To have a real precise way of telling a jury, hey, I'm sure that this particular data point is correct and it is within 4 meters or however many meters, because I not only put it in the Google software, I put it into an independent software, a different software.
Sure, yes.
And you didn't do that?
I did not do that.
And Nick Balance didn't do that?
I don't know if he did or not.
But you would have known.
He has additional training and experience and expertise that I do not have. So the extent of his analysis is it's beyond what I know how to do.
Right. But
I don't know exactly what those tools and techniques are.
Okay. But between 2019 and 2021, you were the case agent?
Yes, I was.
And you would have known if he would have put something into a different software. I mean, the buck stops with you. You're the case agent, right?
Objection, Your Honor, this has been asked and answered. I know counsel's going for a different answer, but it's been asked and answered.
I'll overrule it at this point.
Okay.
Could you ask your question again, please?
Sure. Basically, I was saying that you're the case agent, and so the information stops with you, and that you are the one who would know if this was entered into a different software.
I know that he used some kind of other software and prepared a report for that. I do know that. And to me, I have seen that report and it looks different than the software I use, the Google Earth. I don't know what that software is. At the time, I was still the case agent. His report was still in draft form. It was an ongoing project, and at different times he would share, this is kind of where I'm at, but the final product is yet to come. And so where his final product ended up and what that looked like, I don't know, because I was retired by that point.
Okay. But during your time, there was nobody that came to you that said, hey, I mapped these in Google and I mapped them in an independent one and they came up the same.
Like I said, he was putting it into some kind of mapping software. So I had seen that and it looks different. I just don't know exactly what it is. He was doing that.
So the data points could be different?
No, I just know that they were different. I'm not sure what you're asking.
You're saying that the mapping software could have come up with different results with these two different...
Oh, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that he was using different software than he provided to me in that Google Earth file to do his analysis.
Okay.
You'd have to ask him what that was.
Sure, we'll be sure to do that. On September 23rd, you said that the phone that Alex had, this particular phone, was at Chad Daybell's house between 9:55 and 10:12 a.m., and then it leaves the residence. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
On September 23rd, is that what you said?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And based on your training, based on your experience, based on all of your knowledge that you have of 20 some odd years of working with the FBI, that's not enough time to dig a hole, dig a grave, chop up roots around that particular hole or grave, find boards and find stones, and cover the grave up in that 17-minute window?
I was there when JJ was found, and I've seen that grave, and it looked like it would take a lot more work than 17
longer.
minutes to have dug that and covered it.
Okay. Thank you. There was some talk about where this particular phone was that belonged to Alex Cox, where it was on different dates. On August the 9th, do you recall where Lori Vallow was on that particular day?
August 9th or?
October 9th.
Oh, October 9th? I do. My understanding is she was not in town. She was traveling, if I recall from the investigation, yes.
Going to Arizona?
I think she was in Arizona and then Missouri.
Okay.
I don't know exactly if the 9th, which one of those places she was at.
All right. And on October the 18th, when Tammy Daybell died, do you remember where Lori might have been on that particular day?
My understanding is she was in Hawaii or either in transit to or from Hawaii.
Okay. If I could have just a second, Judge.
Yes.
Your Honor, we have no further questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Any redirect?
You were asked a lot about whether or not you use different software from Agent Balance, and you indicated you did use the Google software, correct?
Yes, I used the same software he provided the document in, or the data in.
And that was how he provided it to you?
Correct. He created that file.
And did you, in fact, conduct additional investigation regarding those data points? And what I'm referencing is on September 8th, a photo was recovered placing Alex Cox in West Yellowstone. Is that correct?
Correct. There was other investigation being conducted to help corroborate the data that was being found in the devices. Yeah.
And on several dates, you found data to corroborate that Alex Cox was in the same location as his device was showing to be.
Correct.
And when you're doing data location, you're just talking about the location of the device itself.
Correct.
And the known user of the device you reviewed was Alex Cox.
Correct. But I couldn't say at all times that he had the device. Just that it was attributed to him, and there was evidence that he did carry that device. But whether he had it all the time, I couldn't say.
And what you've talked about today is not a review of phone calls or text messages between Alex Cox and anyone else. Is that correct?
Correct.
You're just talking about the location data associated with that.
Correct.
So as far as any communications he may or may not have had with Lori or Chad during this time, outside of the 10 text messages that were referenced, you did not get into those communications.
Correct. I was not reviewing his call detail records in depth like that. There was an analyst assisting, as well as Nick Balance was looking at it. I'm aware.
You were also asked about how long it would maybe take to dig, or about the grave that was located, and if 17 minutes was enough time to dig that grave. In your opinion, would 17 minutes be enough time for one person to dig that grave?
I don't think so. I don't think so. It looked, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I think it would have taken one person longer than that to have dug that.
So could more than one person have been involved in digging that grave?
Yes, or potentially.
Objection. It calls for speculation, Judge.
Overruled.
Yeah, it potentially could have been done quicker with more people or equipment, or when I say 17 minutes, that's the time the device is there, not necessarily that the grave was dug then or dug prior to that. I don't know. I can't say that. This is the time when the device was there.
So at this point, there'd be no way to know whether or not there was more than one person involved in digging that grave just based on the data location that you have.
Based on the data location, I can only say there's a device there at the grave site.
No further questions.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Blake.
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers
The
Podcast
Hidden Killers Podcast.
with Tony Bruschi.
That was FBI Special Agent Rick Wright testifying in the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell on May 1st of 2023. There's more to come. Be sure to press subscribe wherever you download podcasts for more courtroom audio, interviews, and discussions on the case. I'm Tony Bruschi. Stay with us.